Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the Common Sense Lifestyle. I'm your host, CM here. And it's, lifestyle and perspective of just common sense. So let's talk about it. I know the weekend has passed, and a big announcement happened on Friday. As you all know, that's been paying attention. I want to get right into it. There's a couple other things I wanted to talk about, but I think this one's the one that really stands out to me. And that's RFK Jr. All right, so RFK Jr., he's part of the whole Kennedy dynasty, I guess you could say. Deep into family with, deep rooted history in politics, right? Obviously, JFK, who was assassinated as president, is his uncle. And his dad, Robert Kennedy, was assassinated as well. And Robert Kennedy was on the up and up, as growing and working as senator, and could have potentially, get to the point of presidency. We'll never know, but it's a family deeply rooted in being a democratic of things, right? Of all, of the different um, politics, and you got the Republicans, you got the Democrats, and his family is very deeply rooted in being a Democrat. All right, so and the value of it was about the, I guess you could say, the family and things of that nature, right? But as time went on, being Democratic has changed a lot, right? And when you talk about the values of what it is to be a Republican versus being a Democrat, it's kind of flipped, right, in a sense, because Republicans is all about conservatism. It's about family and not sort of these like liberal and progressive ideas that the Democrats have really gone to these days. But anyhow, he's a traditional Democrat, right? Like the old style Democrat, and doesn't quite fit the mold of what the modern Democrat is, which is very progressive and left, right? Very progressively far, far left, right? And what's not fair is a lot of things, right? That's gone against him in that regard. And that's what sucks about politics, right? So there was a chance he wanted to run for president, right, as a Democrat. And the Democrat, being that they are just the deep state, right, they really just controlled how they want to go about things, right? The narrative of things wouldn't allow RFK to even break through to run, nor any other Democrat to run for president. They just said straight out, Biden's going to be the one to run, no one else, right? So they didn't really give any Democrats a chance in a primary to say, hey, maybe there's someone that could stack up or even be better than Biden to represent the Democrats. But rather than have a primary and all that, they just went ahead and said Biden's going to do it because Biden beat Trump before. Biden's going to be the one that's going to run again. Even though we've all seen and everybody has seen how Biden's been deteriorating, right? Losing his mind, everything. It was just, he just wasn't what he was for years. And the question was, who's running the White House all this time? Because it didn't seem like it was him, right? It seemed like it was advisors. Could be Obama. Could be anybody running the White House behind the scenes, while Biden's more like a puppet that you give him the script, he'll follow the script, right? and just kind of walking around as a vessel. But that's that, right? So without having a primary, they stack the deck and say, hey, Biden's going to be it. That's it. No questions asked. So they he couldn't do nothing about it. RFK couldn't do nothing about it. All right. So he said, fuck that shit. I'm going to go and just be independent. Screw these guys. Because I am the traditional Democrat that of what it was and technically supposed to be, right? So he ran off of those ideals still. But being a third party is so hard, right? That's what sucks because it's not fair when you have a two-party system essentially. And yeah, I mean technically you can open up to other parties, but it's really hard to break through to be running as a fair third party. I mean technically, if you really want to go into it, you should be they should be running 3 to 4 different parties of representation, right? That way you can kind of get the gist of what representation is all about when it comes to policy and just the way of thinking, right? Rather than just a two-party system because your choices are super limited and it's really tough to really pick someone that you like because you might not like both of them because of their again their way of thinking. So Kennedy ran off, RFK ran off as a third party. So being third party is also a spoiler for both parties of Republican and Democrat because, in a sense, they can take away votes that could be for whoever represents the Democrats and whoever represents the Republicans, right? So when Biden fell apart, and again, without having a primary, they could have had a quick primary. Without having a primary, they just installed Kamala as the go-to next person in line to run for president. Again, without a primary. So that wasn't fair for Democrats to really just step in. Especially, there were many, many that voiced their opinion of, hey, I want in. Biden should step down. And when that time came and they kind of just elevated Kamala, those sort of statements were quieted, right? The ones that were really resistant of Biden quieted as well. And now Kamala's kind of the representation of the Democrats. Without winning the primary, we're not even getting a single vote. All of a sudden, is running for president, which again is not fair. They kind of technically, in a sense, without really saying it, but invoked the 25th Amendment because what's Biden really doing? All right, because yeah, he's not really doing anything much right now, and there's only a couple more months left, right, before election, and then a couple more, and then right after that, the inauguration of the next person. All right, so technically, Kamala is running the show, even though she's not running the show because she hasn't really done shit when you think about it. And then she talks about all these different things that she's going to do and all that. And it's like, you've been in it for 3.5 years already, almost 4 years. And you could be doing that right now, technically. Anyhow, being that how the system's been unfair, the machine has been unfair to RFK Jr., just like how everything's been unfair and the stack has been decked against Trump, RFK strategically did two things, right? First, he reached out to the Democratic Party and reached out to Kamala and said, hey, bring me on board and I will support you if you want to support some of the things I'm looking for as being a Democrat. But Kamala and the Democrats didn't really give him the time of day, even though he's pretty much Democratic royalty, right? Because you think about it, JFK and Robert Kennedy, they are people of the government. You know, one of the top greatest presidents in history, JFK, who only had a short run, but well established as a person, very popular, very well known, very strong. And it's not like RFK is nobody. He's a somebody too. One of the other things that's unfair with RFK was how, being that he had two family members being assassinated, they did not want to give him Secret Service protection. It's like, isn't that crazy? That he had family members that were killed, and yet they don't want to give him that same protection? I mean, to me, that's a sign already. And then another sign that the Democrats weren't interested in what he had to say, even though he would pledge his support for the Democrat Party because it's in his blood. Again, they didn't want to hear nothing from him. They were just like, they shook him off. They were like, whatever. That's some crazy shit. So he reached out to Trump, had some conversations, and then they both admit that they don't agree on everything, but they both agree that, hey, you know what? We got to beat the deep state, because we can't let the deep state continue to run this country and tear this country apart with all the bullshit they've been doing. Illegal immigrants, the wars across the seas, the stupid green policies, the exporting or importing all this gas when we could just be drilling offshore. We could be running nuclear infrastructure in terms of electricity instead of relying on old, outdated, and overpriced electricity. Electricity and that, PG&E and all that. And just the electrical grid that's outdated and overpriced. And all kinds of bullshit this government's been doing as a democratic deep blue state. So they joined forces. He said, you know what? He will step down from the race for president and endorse Trump because they came to a common agreement and they felt like it's better to join forces rather than, him being a spoiler. He's still going to be a spoiler because strategically he did a smart thing. He only pulled his name out of the swing states, right? And swing states means that, they can really go either way, right? Swing states supported Trump in 2016, but then he didn't get the same support from the swing states in 2020, therefore Biden got elected. All right, so could the tides have changed without RFK? Possibly. But at the same time, the media is so anti-Trump that you can't really get a fair analysis of how Trump is really doing because they're making it look like Kamala is in the thick of things. She's a popular candidate and all that when they really were against her and for the longest time for all the bullshit, all the crap that she's done. And all of a sudden she's like the media darling. She's this, she's that. And it really shows you how the media is controlled by the deep state as well. In the narrative of what they control and what they make her out to be. Because Kamala is political trash. But they make her out like she's she's like the next Obama. Right? So, what's interesting too is that if you want to talk about unity of what they're preaching, it's the Republicans. Because when you look at it, he's deep Democratic, all right, and to come across the board and join forces with Trump, right, Republicans and all that, that really shows you something that's unifying, right? Unifying ideals. His own family, like, turned against him for making that decision, which is crazy. But he wasn't getting support from the Democrats for who he is and what he represented and what his ideals are for. So, I mean, in a way, he had no choice but to go and work with Trump, because at least Trump is open minded to really just talk to people, right? Trump's known to talk to other leaders across the world, as he has evoked peace, right? There was no wars anywhere at that time when Trump was in office. And if anything, he actually had fair relationships with those so-called evil leaders, right? The North Korea, Russia, and any other sort of people, right? People were kept at bay. People didn't want to test Trump. But anyhow, this move right here to me shows unification. Shows that Trump is willing to work with anybody. He's not just some deep Republican, deep MAGA type of person. What they represent together is making America great again. And what's so wrong with that? That's the thing about it. What's so wrong with that? When they're all about America, right? And one thing that Trump is allowing RFK to do is being able to do something that RFK is really deeply caring about, right? He's caring about what's in the food chain, what's affecting the health of people in America, the children, right? What's in the food, what's in the supply chain, the chemicals, the whatever it is that people are eating, right? And it's not really as good and wholesome as it can be, because are there stuff that's added into the food? Whatever it is, right? But that's one thing he's really taken to heart about what he wants, is worrying about is people's health, which is interesting that RFK wants to kind of go into that part of being, I guess you could say, in Donald Trump's cabinet in that way, in that role. So when you look at what Trump has, this is not the only Democrats that's kind of crossed over to the Republican side to work with, right? Tulsi Gabbard is another notable name, right? She ran against Kamala back in the 2019 primary, because back in the 2019 primary, Kamala was the first to drop out. And so Tulsi Gabbard, she's another representative of what a classic Democrat should be, right? Not this progressive, far left type of person with all kinds of bullshit, right? It's for the people, not for illegals, not for all this other bullshit that is happening. They're about what it is for America, but they're not getting that from the Democrats. So I think this is a great move that Trump did here. I think it really, to me, bolsters his position. And again, it's a smart move that he only pulled his name out of swing states. So that's about, 8 states or so. 8 states that can make or break a difference in terms of electoral votes for being able to get elected a president. Because you need 270 electoral votes across, the 50 states, right? Some states have more than others in terms of electoral votes, and it's all dependent on population and all that stuff. And with that, it adds up. Whoever has 270 wins. Um, and those key swing states can make a difference, and it has always made a difference in elections. So I think he tipped the scale in Trump's favor. Not that I don't think Trump was really struggling or anything in the first place. I think he's ahead, and the machine out there, the deep blue state machine, is really just trying to control the narrative to make it look like Trump psychologically is losing, to make people think, oh, maybe we should be voting for Democrats when you shouldn't be. You got to be out of your mind if you want to vote Democrat, because they're just so full of shit. So kudos to that. I think great move. I think it's a win-win though. Win-win for RFK and a win-win for Trump, because you have two great people. You have President Trump that's run the country before. He knows what it takes. He knows what it is. When you think about it, he's rich. He don't need to run a country, take on all the stress and all that, but he's doing it because he loves America. And he loves how things can work with people if you do it the American way. Not this bullshit stuff. He's doing it because that's his passion. Is doing what's best for America. And Democrats don't give a shit. They're going to tax the shit out of us, which they've caused inflation. They've opened up borders. They've done all kinds of stuff that, how's that benefiting any of us? So all it's done is just making us pay more for everything, and we're losing badly. And we need to get back to where we were before. And to me, RFK is another asset and an ally to have, to be on board. It's just too bad that Democrats just kick him to the curb like that. For having this sort of, you could say, political royalty in the family, to be just kind of pushed aside like that, that's really fucked up. And that really shows you how Democrats really don't care about nobody except for themselves, all right? The elites. And that's something we got to be really worried about. But anyhow, I just wanted to give you guys my thoughts on this. I think it's a great move, and it's just another win when you have a stacked deck of great individuals that are representative of the Republican Party. I mean, they got some deeply intelligent set of people that is now, and that's for the future. And this is just right here another piece to that, right? And again, it's interesting that he's a Democrat. I don't know if he'll change his political affiliation. I don't know if that's even important at all, but to have someone like him on board, to me, I think is a missed opportunity for the Democrats that they could be regretting when come election time. So removing his name off swing states really kind of clears the deck that swing state voters could potentially just vote for Trump, right? But he's going to leave his name on all other states, meaning that he's still going to really affect the voting by being a spoiler in all the other states, especially places like California that's deeply blue, right? He's going to be pulling some of that away alone because being that he's a classic Democrat, there's still classic Democrats in California that are not progressive. All right. And people do miss the old Democrats. And people don't like the progressive Democrats. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a spoiler he's going to be in the blue states. Um, and of course, the red states. I don't see him as being a spoiler in red states. I think red states are already vested for Trump. So it's a matter of how RFK is going to affect the blue states. Because being that he's originally Democrat, I think it's going to affect the votes. So yeah, very smart political move, and great that he came on board. I think it was the best case scenario for him to do, because there's no way that he was going to even break through at this time, which is unfortunate because we do need to break away from the two-party system. Because it just sucks, that you're stuck with only these two candidates when you should open it up to maybe 3 to 4, type of people that could, you know, there's going to be something for representing for everybody, and I think there's nothing wrong with competition because it'll make you stronger if you really, have a policy and background that people may like. But anyhow, I just want to show you guys the latest on that. I just want to say thanks. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. You think Trump made a great move with bringing RFK aboard? I think it's a great move. I think this could really swing the election now. So anyhow, stay tuned as I always have new video content. Just talking about common sense and perspective, lifestyle, and all that stuff. And to me, common sense should have been that being a Democrat, you would at least have a conversation with RFK, especially since he reached out to them first. And they shot it down by just, we don't need to talk to you. Right? So people might say, oh, well, he's really just kind of selling himself to either side. I think to me, he gave Democrats the opportunity to work with him, but they said whatever, right? They ignored him. So having conversation with Trump, Trump can be a person that he could work with easily, right? To me, there's nothing wrong with being able to work with people, right? If people are willing to give you the time of day and you're willing to put in something of value that's going to benefit not just himself, not just Trump, but for everybody, what is wrong with that? So I think it's a win for everybody on the Republicans. So welcome RFK, and we'll see how everything goes as election gets near. Will Kamala do interviews and all this other stuff? How will she fare in the debate? We'll find out soon enough, right? So other than that, I just want to say thanks. Comment down below. Let me know what you think about all this, and I'll keep you guys up to date on everything. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe. Comment down below. Also hit the bell icon. I'll see you next one.